Thank you for coming out this morning. This is a impact fee presentation. We're going to go through the county's impact fee process and what we're thinking about doing. We're holding two public workshops, this one this morning and another one this evening on the east side of the county at the East Hernando Branch Library out in Ridge Manor. So we have people in the east able to attend, in the west, in the morning and the evening. We're trying to be as accommodating as we can. So briefly, I'm just going to talk to you first about what impact fees actually are. Impact fees are charges that are assessed on new development only. These are on new development to help pay for public infrastructure required to accommodate that new development. These are based on capital cost requirements. This is not money that we would charge to be utilized for operating costs or salaries. This is the capital cost of providing new infrastructure that is needed because of the new development, whether it's utility, water lines, or roadways, or public schools, or public safety, fire stations, police equipment, things like that. In order to assess an impact fee in the state of Florida, we are required to meet a dual rational nexus requirement. What that means is that there has to be, you have to be able to demonstrate as a county that the fee is needed to be related to the capital needs related to the growth that is being produced. And you also have to relate the capital expenditures to the growth. So the capital needs and the capital expenditures, those two components need to be demonstrated in order for a county to charge impact fees to developers of new development. So impact fees are based on the capital cost requirements anticipated for providing those new services to new developments. And I talked about the dual rational nexus requirement. Just for a point of information, impact fees were last adjusted in Hernando County. We collect 8 different impact fees, and most of them were last adjusted in 2013, over 11 years ago. The fire EMS impact fee, the public buildings impact fee, the correctional facilities, that's our jails and our detention centers, our law enforcement impact fee, library facilities impact fee, parks and recreation impact fee. Those were all adjusted last in 2013. There was an adjustment to the educational facilities, that's for schools and other educational resources, and transportation, our roadways and our traffic infrastructure. Those were last adjusted about 4 years ago in 2020. Now I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about some technical stuff, but this is basically the state statute that governs how Hernando County assesses and collects impact fees. It's Florida Statute 163.31801, which many of you don't really need to know, but this is the section of the statute that describes how we may increase the fees, like we're thinking about doing now. It says that the county, a local government, and Hernando County is a local government, may only increase an impact fee if we follow these following steps. And the first step is that there's a plan for the imposition, collection, and use of the increased impact fees. The increase in the impact fee that is less than 25% of the current rate must be implemented into equal parts. So if it's between 25 and less than 25% of what the current fee is, we can increase it, but we have to break it up over 2 years, whatever that increase is. If we're considering an increase in impact fees that's between 25% and 50% of what that current fee is, we're required by state law to break that up over 4 years. So it can only go up 12.5% the first year, 12.5% the second year, if we went the full 50%. So we'd break it up. If it was 40%, we'd break it up 10, 10, 10, 10, whatever. That part of the statute also states that you can't exceed an increase in impact fees of more than 50%. And there's also part of the statute that states that impact fees may not be increased more than once every 4 years. And the last part of this part of the Florida statute states that you can't retroactively increase impact fees. So we can't go back in time and say, well, the impacts were already happening. We need to start collecting, for stuff that's already been permitted or through the process. There's another part to the statute, though, and that part allows for what's known as extraordinary circumstances. And this is where situations that enough impact fees haven't been collected, or the growth has happened so quickly that the impact fees haven't been keeping up with the growth and the need for infrastructure improvements. There is a section of this state statute that allows for these extraordinary circumstances, and it allows the county to increase an impact fee beyond the part I just talked to you about, that phase-in limitation of 4 years or 50%. But it makes the county go through some extra steps. One of those extra steps is that it requires a demonstrated needs study to justify the increase that the county may consider be executed. So we have to do a study. That study needs to have been completed very recently, within the previous 12 months of the proposed increase in the impact fees that meet this extraordinary need. And the study needs to demonstrate that an extraordinary need to increase the impact fees beyond that 50% threshold truly exists. As part of that statute, we're required to hold 2 publicly noticed workshops dedicated to this extraordinary circumstance, necessitating the need for us to exceed these phase-ins. You're sitting at the first of the 2 this morning. The second one is this evening, as I mentioned, so we'll meet the requirements of that. We'll talk about the extraordinary needs, this demonstrated need study in just a moment. And then the last part of this is, because this is above and beyond what the statute would normally allow the county to do, it requires a supermajority vote of the county commission to adopt this. This means that our county commission consists of 5 elected officials, and it requires at least a 2/3 vote of that board. So 2/3 of 5 is somewhere between 3 and 4. So we have to have 4 affirmative votes out of those 5 commissioners. 4 out of 5 commissioners must approve this if it's proposed to exceed the 50%. And that's a state statute requirement. It's basically a safeguard that that commission has truly considered, the ramifications of increasing this impact fee. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about the demonstrated need and the demonstrated needs study. The county did commission an expert consultant to do this study for us. It's a company, Stantec, that conducted this study for us. Stantec took a look at several things, and we'll get into the specifics of the study in just a moment, but they did a complete and thorough study of our existing fees, our growth, our needs, and they provided this study to the county. The first part of the study, they note that the population and customer growth rates exceed the historical amounts, which requires an urgent expansion of some of our infrastructure in order to meet the expected level of service that the residents of Hernando County have become accustomed to. Second, they noted, as I mentioned a little earlier, that most of the fees have not been updated since 2013, and those fees that we are collecting no longer reflect the full cost recovery of what it takes the county to provide those infrastructure needs to accommodate the new growth that's happening in the county. Stantec has determined that extraordinary inflation and pressure from the extraordinary inflation has significantly increased the cost of capital improvements, and the cost of expanding our facilities for the growth must be adjusted to the current level so that new development can more fairly pay its own way. The concept of impact fees and concurrency in general is that development shouldn't have to pay for things that they don't impact. If a new development comes in and they add a certain amount of traffic to a roadway, they should have to pay for that fair share of what they put on the roadway, but they shouldn't have to build all the new roads in the county just because they're coming to Hernando County. So the concept of proportionate fair share is something that is included in this concept of concurrency and paying impact fees. Lastly, the study noted that if we don't increase the fees, the county actually faces revenue losses by not collecting the impact fees. As such, a higher percentage of that cost that we still need to provide these services, this infrastructure, if we don't increase the impact fees, that money has to come from somewhere. And it could be borne by the existing property owners through ad valorem taxes. So that's something that county commission and the county staff feels is very important, that we don't do that the existing taxpayer shouldn't have to pay for the new development, the impacts the new development is providing. So as I mentioned, this demonstrated need study was conducted by Stantec. There's a technical memorandum some of you may have picked up that was available on the table out there. This technical memorandum describes the results of the study and was provided to Scott Herring, our Public Works Director, and he's the county engineer, and Scott provided that to the county commission. We received that on April 24th. It's also available, or will be available, on the county's website. And you can see on the screen here the address, but the easiest way to find it is just go to departments, planning, and then there's a separate page for impact fee rate studies. It has all the historic studies that we've done before listed there. So this will be listed there as well. Now, just a little bit about the impact fees that we collect. Most of the impact fees we collect are the same fee across the county, but two of the impact fees that we collect are broken into districts because different parts of the county have different needs or different impacts for new development. So the first one is the road impact districts. The road system has different impact districts because developments happening in these four sections of the county are affecting the roadways different. So certain sections, new development is impacting the transportation network more adversely, and they pay a higher impact fee. And then there's other parts of the county where new development can come along, but the roadway system is either below capacity or meets the adopted level of service that we expect. So these four roadway districts are shown on the map here. There's districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And different impact fees are collected for these different roadway districts. And the second impact fee that we collect that's subject to different impact fee districts is parks. Parks and Recreation has a park impact benefit district, and it's broken into 4 zones also, but they're not the exact same 4 zones because the impact to parks may be different than the impact to transportation in any one of these 4 given areas. So what we've determined is are we meeting the level of service in these areas? If we are, we don't have to charge developers as much. If we're not, or if we're over capacity on parks or on roads, the fees are higher in those areas. Lastly, I'm just going to show you a table of current impact fees and some proposals that staff has presented to the commission. Now, the county commission has not made a determination on what impact fees they are going to increase, if any. As I mentioned, it takes 4 out of 5 of the commissioners to approve any change to the impact fees that are above that 50% threshold. But what staff did was we provided the county commission, now this is for a single-family residential dwelling unit. This is strictly for that. There's different breakdowns in the way we charge impact fees for residential, non-residential, such as a retail shopping center or an industrial complex. There's different impact fees for multifamily residential because they have different impacts than single-family residential. This is just an example, but there are different breakdowns for all those different fees. But as you look at this, the top line is the adopted fee. That's the fee we're charging now for one single-family house that is new to the county that didn't exist before. The fire EMS fee is $235. The fee that we charge for new public buildings is $466. For correctional facilities and jails is $7. Law enforcement is $86. Library facilities is $107. Parks and recreation is $411. Educational facilities, a single-family home generates generally more children than other uses. So the educational facility impact fee there is $3,176. Transportation is $1,269. So the total current fee for a single-family home, total impact fee that would be charged to obtain a building permit for a single-family home in Hernando County is $5,757. Now, there's some different scenarios shown there. If we increased all of those fees to the maximum allowed by the statute, that would be raised to $17,403. That's over $12,000 more per impact per single-family home. The discussion that the county commission had felt that that was an extreme increase, and it would actually probably unfairly impact the cost of housing and create difficulties for people to come to Hernando County and who want to live here, because affordability and the ability to purchase that would get passed along in the cost of the home. So we provided a few different scenarios. If you had a 50% increase for each category, if we had a special circumstance, the extraordinary circumstances that we talked about just for transportation and schools at 100%, special circumstance for just transportation at 100%, and then if we increased all the fees by 75%. These were just examples that we presented to the county commission, so they understood what the cost differences could be with these increases. The total that the county commission decides to increase it, if any, will be determined by them based on staff's guidance and input, but it really rests at the county commission to make that final decision. The conversation that they had this as a discussion item, and the conversation that they had was that they were comfortable with a number somewhere between those bottom two rows, between the 10,000 and the 13,000. But until they see specific numbers and come to some specific formula, I don't think any decision has been made. But the consensus was that the county commission recognized that it's time to consider an increase in impact fees for the county. And one of the most important discussions that the commission had was that impact fees are necessary to prevent tax increases to our taxpayers, to our property owners, to the people who are already living here. So the impact fees, they felt were important. It's a good way to ensure that the development of our infrastructure continues to keep pace with the development that's coming to Hernando County without passing that cost burden on to the taxpayers. So I believe that's the end of the presentation. I'm willing and happy to answer any questions that you may have. I will ask you to just speak loudly because we are recording this, and I can come bring the microphone out, I guess, but actually I don't think I can. So if you just have any questions, just speak it to me and I'll repeat the question into the microphone so everybody can hear. Yes, ma'am.
Given the fact that, it's been since 2013 since they've been raised, it makes sense that they would be raised quite a bit, to more like the maximum wouldn't be out of the question. Because it's not only the taxpayers' burdens, it's the fact that people that live here now are dealing with more traffic. The roads have potholes. I mean, they're in poor condition in general and through this county, especially main feeder roads that people take.
Right.
And it's just, there's spots, just for instance, on Landover, in the corner of Landover and Elmcon, right by the Springside High School, right off the Mariner, there's that development going in there with a whole bunch of apartments. Every apartment's gonna have 2 cars. And every single family home is gonna have at least 2 cars. I've gotten that directly from the study part. So anyway, I'm just saying that the impact is already here.
Right.
In the schools. The final thing is the roads in the schools. The schools are really impacted heavily. They're short teachers, they're short bus drivers. It's a necessary thing to do.
Very good. That's a little bit more than I can repeat back into the microphone, but I think we picked it up. But I'm going to ask everybody. You're welcome to ask me your questions, but if you could help me, we have comment cards at that back table. If you would fill that out with whatever you just told me your concern is, and just put your name and your contact information, we'll be happy to get back to you with the answers if we have more information that you need. But if you just fill out the comment card, it'll help us keep the notes also of what your concern was. So the impact, certainly, your comment was that you think the maximum should be considered, that the impacts, especially to the transportation network, have been great, and that you stated a couple specific examples, including at Elgin and Elcan and Landover.
But also, and the schools. So,
and the schools, right.
That's it. Considering that it's been over $18,000 in Pasco County, I don't see why we're, a third of that.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
For the rest of the crowd, so that we have a perspective on what it costs to live in Southwest Florida, how much are the impact fees in Hillsborough, Pasco, Citrus, and Pinellas, comparatively speaking? Because realtors go, oh, you're going to scare away all the new people coming in. Really? What is it comparatively, so that we have something to go and you aren't going to scare away the new people moving in?
Very good. I don't have that information in front of me, and I do apologize. Some of you know this, but many of you probably don't. I'm relatively new to the area. I'm one of those people who just came here from another place. I started working with the county about 6 months ago, and I'm not familiar necessarily off the top of my head. We have looked at the surrounding areas and what the impact fees are. I believe they're a little bit higher. I can tell you they are higher in Pasco.
They're over 18,000.
Yeah, they're higher in Hillsborough. I couldn't tell you about Citrus. I believe they may be near the same or similar. They are higher? Okay. Okay. So they're less than $2,000 more in Citrus. But so you can see there's a disparity, and that's a great point. We can provide that information as well. We'll put together a table of what the current impact fees are in the surrounding counties and put that on that same website so that you have that information. Yes, ma'am.
If the commission does not vote to raise the impact fees to cost level, where are they getting that shortfall from us taxpayers?
Well, so It's a rhetorical question. The question was if the impact fees aren't raised to the maximum level, where will the difference come from? And that would be part of our budgetary process through the county commission. Yes, sir.
So I understand the new development aspect. Does this affect at all about residential that's either expanding or renovating a home?
No, so impact fees are only assessed to new construction. So if there was a vacant lot in an existing development, that new house would be subject to impact fees, unless for some reason it was already vested. There's a long and lengthy process, but sometimes master developments, especially developments that were built many years ago or planned many years ago when there was a development of regional impact process in the state of Florida, sometimes those rights are vested and the impact fees would have been what they were at that time or adjusted for inflation. But only for new construction, not expansions, not additions, not remodelings. They would not be subject to impact fees. Yes, sir.
Are we still planning on assessing these basically evenly across every house type and size, or are we having any type of ideas about possibly doing it based on home value or actual square footage?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer, Nick. I know that a change to the structure based on bedroom mix, square footage, if we're not charging that now, that would require us to do another study to demonstrate the disparity or the impacts, right? So we would be required to demonstrate that a 4-bedroom house needs to charge more than a 3-bedroom house, or a 3,000 square foot house impacts more than a 2,000 square foot house. So I don't believe that study or any study considering those have been done. So I don't think at this time that's a consideration, but it may be direction that we are given in the future. Do we have any other questions? You already had yours. I'm sorry.
Okay, I get one?
Yeah, I'm teasing you. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to stress my point was what I said was the fact that either impact fees cover the growth,
Right.
or the taxpayers do, we know that, or we suffer with, less services, with more traffic, the roads are not as good, and, that's what I want to emphasize, the fact that the schools are overcrowded and so on, as it is. So,
Understood.
and then we have to pay another, possibly a tax.
Yes.
Or in sales tax. I mean.
Very good. Yes, sir.
When will the county review this?
Our intention is to have the county hear this in June at a publicly noticed county commission meeting. It's required to have 2 hearings, so any changes that they propose would require 2 public meetings, 2 public hearings by the county commission. And I think the 2 meetings in June are the 2 meetings, June 11th and June 25th. Is that what we're?
I think we'll end up at the first meeting in July.
Okay. All right. So we're moving forward with this as quickly as we can, though. But for a couple of reasons, it's necessary. This demonstrated need technical memo has a very short shelf life. We're required to, do these within a year of this study being conducted. It needs to be fresh and it needs to be current. It is something that the county commission has directed the county administrator and staff to move forward with.
I'm glad they're doing it.
Any other questions? Well, we appreciate you taking the time this morning to come and listen to this presentation. We're giving another presentation on this topic this evening at the East Hernando Branch Library in Ridge Manor, 6:30 p.m. tonight. If you want to come and go through this another time, come out east. If you have people that may be interested in this topic, I'd appreciate if you let them know that we're having this meeting this evening out there. And thank you very much.